Welcome to the Developer Spotlight on the Full Dive Gaming Podcast. In the Developer Spotlight, we sit down with VR industry professionals. This week, Jay and Lipnox are sitting down with Ben Outram, developer of Squingle VR. Ben, thank you so much for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're excited. We've had more developers on lately. And of course, while we're saying thank you, we got to thank our sponsor, Asterion Products. They make awesome VR and AR headset accessories and also even a VR mat if you need something that keeps you in your place. Check them out on Amazon. Full Dive 10, all one word, will get you an extra 10% off. Well, we are excited to have you here. For people out there who haven't heard of it, Squingle is a puzzle game. It's currently on Quest 2's AppLab, and it's got really high ratings and reviews. Ben, will you tell us a little bit about Squingle for someone who's never heard of it?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a psychedelic VR puzzle game, essentially, where you have to guide rotating orbs through increasingly complex puzzles and mazes, all with a sort of like very relaxing kind of electronic soundtrack and with very trippy intestinal kind of people call it kind of cosmic intestines kind of visuals. So the visual part of it is a very big part of the experience. It's kind of quite audio-visual kind of experience as well as a puzzle game.
Yeah, Lipnox, you actually reviewed this quite a while back, and we kind of talked about, what I saw versus what you saw, and it sounds like there's been some updates and some changes. Lipnox, do you want to tell us real quick, like back when you tried it, what was the game like?
So when I played it, I remember it was, I don't know if these other modes were in there and I just didn't check them out, but I remember doing each set of like waves where it was like you had I think it was like 10 or 20 puzzles that got progressively harder, and then you got to like the next set of things. And I remember it being one of those kinds of games that you could just stand in VR, walk around your play space and just look at this puzzle from all these different directions. And you had to sort of get along the trail and hit certain points and then get out. And I remember getting, progressively challenging really, really fast. And I remember you mentioning that there's been some Zen mode that I don't think I checked that mode out at all. But when I played it, I remember playing the standard mode and going through the puzzles. And I really liked that. And honestly, the visuals on Quest 2, definitely top notch.
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a lot of different ways to play Squingle. I guess, you can go through it presents you with these sort of puzzles in succession. So, the first one's like really simple. You just have to guide like a bit like one of those sort of wire games, where you have to you don't want to touch the edges. But then in this case, you've got like a puzzle where you've got the ball and it's inside a tube. So you don't want to hit the edges of the tube. And the first one's just, really simple, just shows you kind of the mechanic. But then it gets more and more complicated and you start getting these balls which are rotating. So they need to go, sometimes you'll get parts of the puzzle which are like helical structures like DNA or, certain curves. So the balls have to be rotating around in the right direction in order to, access those parts of the puzzle. And then there are some orbs that, change the rotation so that you need to sort of figure out, okay, I need to get to this part of the puzzle and then to this, and then to get to the goal. And then there are sort of like enemies and things, so you have to your timing is very important, and so there's different kind of puzzle elements that are introduced through the game. And one game that's been compared to a lot is there's a game called Kuru-Kuru-In on the Game Boy Advance, like ages ago. I don't know if any of you guys remember that one, but you had to like guide a spinning bar through a two-dimensional maze. So the gameplay is a little bit similar to that game, but obviously now it's in VR and you've got much more control and it's in 3D and it's very trippy, psychedelic visuals as well.
Yeah, I actually had a game on PlayStation 1 that has that similar kind of like avoid the edges, and they mix it up with all these different things too, but I haven't played that one in a long time. I got that on disc somewhere.
Yeah.
Old school. Well, how long now has it been on AppLab?
So it hit AppLab on July last year, and it's also on Steam VR. So yeah, it's been out like almost a year now on AppLab. It came out also on the HTC Vive Flow back in October when that came out. So they kind of approached me to like put it on there because they wanted content for the HTC Vive Flow. And then now I'm working to put it on a couple of new platforms that I don't think I can really say what they are at the moment. Unfortunately, but I know, so it's going on more and more platforms, which is really exciting, like some of the major hardware platforms. So I'm pretty excited about that.
And it's on Steam too, right?
It's on Steam. So, pretty much if you've got a VR headset, you should be able to like access Squingle wherever you are. Yeah.
So am I allowed to guess what the headset is that you're not allowed to say?
You can guess, but I'll have to just give a poker face. Like that's
So
that's
I
when
would
I'm
guess
playing poker. I'm like,
if Apple's doing this new headset, I would say Squingle would be a perfect title for an Apple headset. Poker face.
Good poker face. Good poker
the
face.
poker face.
But moving on, one thing we've definitely had a lot of is developers who have sort of mentioned their struggle with getting onto the Oculus store from AppLab. And how do you feel about that whole process? And you've worked with so many other different platforms. How does that process compare to those platforms you've tried to get things put out on?
Yeah, I mean, other platforms, like there's a lot of companies out there trying to develop their platforms and get content. So they're like throwing money at developers right now to like port games to their platforms, which has really kept Squingle afloat, to be honest, which is great. Obviously, I'd love to be on the Oculus Quest official store. And, it's always a bit of a mystery as to how to get on there. But like back in earlier this year, there was the London's Games Festival, and there was someone representative from Oculus who was there, and they were taking like 30 minutes sort of pitch sessions with developers, mainly to give feedback on UI and games and game mechanics and things like that. But I kind of went in full guns blazing, made sure I had like 3 quests that were all charged, so I had redundancy and had my iPad with the slick presentation, and went and gave a real good pitch. And she was really impressed with it, and then she was like, I'll pitch this internally to the Oculus. And so it did go in front of like a committee, and they had, gave it a good run for its money, and they gave a lot of really good feedback. But in the end, they just thought it's not really appropriate for their store. So like obviously I wasn't very happy with that. But I think when you look at the store, there's a lot of like, I think games like Squingle, it's an indie game. It's very niche, kind of very niche art style, very niche gameplay. It's like really the intersection of kind of psychedelics and virtual reality, which doesn't really represent a huge portion of Oculus's. There's a lot of young people on it, like teenagers, people wanting like shooting games and things like that. So I think that maybe it just doesn't really fit in with a niche. Having said that, it's got, I believe, this is still the case, but it's got the highest user rating, average user rating of any game on the entire Quest ecosystem, like including AppLab and main store. So the people that do buy into it and play it, they do really love it. So I hope that goes down to some extent. And I think with the new Oculus, that's rumored to come out in October, it's going to have like new features which I hope Squingle might be able to take advantage of where other games can't to some extent. So I think that Squingle's still got some juice ahead of it, maybe for Oculus, but I don't know.
So we get some Squingle color pass through.
That would be cool, wouldn't it? Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I'd love that. That'd be sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would add a whole nother layer if you could, have the puzzle in your room and you're just moving around your actual room, because especially for the room scale mode that you had. Now you even mentioned here back on the Game Boy Advance or the PS1, there's been other games that kind of follow this, like it's a puzzle game that you move objects through an environment. But something that kind of set yours apart, I felt like, was there was a little bit of a story that's unfolding as you go through, but it's very kind of zen or philosophical. Like it's not very clear. It's not cut and dry. Oh, this is happening. It brings up a lot of questions. Where did the inspiration for the plot line come from?
Yeah, I mean, Squingle's kind of a big culmination of lots of different interests and parts of my life, really. It's like very much a self-actualization project of myself rather than, so like I became very interested in Buddhism and meditation back when I was at university, and then after uni I went to India for like 6 months, and my mate convinced me to go on this like silent retreat where it was like a crash course in Buddhist philosophy and meditation, and it was just blew my mind, and like then got really much more involved with it back in the UK when I came back, and so there's an awful lot of Buddhist philosophy in there. But then there's also quite a lot of just sort of playful kind of playfulness, which comes more from sort of like psychedelia, I guess. Like, so when I was quite into that sort of thing especially when I was younger and like a teenager. Sort of come from the countryside, and there's not really much to do around here, so you go on the hills and go far away and things like. So yeah, like there's obviously a lot of influence from that direction,
Okay.
very interested in very sort of trippy visuals in lots of different art. I'm interested in music visualizers. I used to do a lot of music visualizers and a couple of VR ones as well. So you can check those out, and if you're interested in other work I've done, and things like liquid crystals and physics. A lot of the inspiration from the art style and stuff comes from physics. I did physics as my undergrad and did a PhD in liquid crystal display engineering, which was all about looking down on microscopes at these beautiful iridescent trippy materials, which have loads of colors and flowing patterns, and some of that has been lifted and directly into the game. So yeah, the story that the goddess character Squingle, or whatever her name might be, yeah, she says some pretty trippy stuff through the game.
Yeah, it gets you thinking.
Well, she definitely has that Buddhism kind of vibe to herself. And it's funny you mentioned the music visualizers thing, because I got to be honest, when I was younger, I was totally addicted to music visualizers, trying to get online and get special ones. I remember there was one called Project M, and then it just eventually just got incorporated right into Microsoft. But the visualizers is definitely a thing you notice with this game. But moving on from that, you mentioned the Vive Flow port, which honestly, I was really excited about the Vive Flow. But the one thing that was sort of iffy for me about the Vive Flow was it doesn't really have traditional controllers. You sort of use your phone or something to control things. Did you find success with that platform, and what kind of issues did you have trying to get the controls to work?
I mean, I would say a lot of issues and no success. They paid me a porting fee, which basically covered my time and a bit of a tip and a bit of pocket money kind of thing to actually port it. And it was quite an interesting experience dealing with it. I was when they first pitched this hardware to me, and then they were like, I was like, oh yeah, the form factor is great. And then they said, oh, it doesn't have 6 degree of freedom controllers. You control it with a phone. And I was just like, I even like, I don't know if I can probably say this. I sent them an email and I said, like, guys, like, don't release this right now. Like, get some 6 degree of freedom controllers, like engineer those things and then release it, because this thing's dead in the water. If you release it with just a 3 degree of freedom controller, like, there's just no point. And I think that's probably come to pass. I had to do quite a lot to change the controls. Squingle is fundamentally a 6 degree of freedom game, because you're like, you've got these 3D puzzles guiding it, and that's the joy of it. That's the whole point of Squingle, is like, and the design, and we can talk more about that. But so yeah, making it into a sort of point and drag kind of experience, I think it degraded the experience a lot. I mean, it's still fun, but it's definitely a different game on the Vive Flow. And to be honest, it's not a game that many people are playing on the Vive Flow. So I don't think. But yeah,
is anyone actually playing Vive Flow? That'd be a great question.
I wondered that.
I don't know.
It could be the most successful game on the platform.
To be honest, I haven't actually checked sales for Squingle on the Vive Flow for yonks, so I don't actually know.
You haven't gotten a big check in the mail lately?
No. No. It hasn't bought my house yet, that's for sure.
Well, it's interesting because we were talking about the controls, and when I first got into it, I noticed that there was a choice where you either controlled the ball by grabbing with your grip button or by grabbing with your trigger to start. You could split it up, kind of how you controlled. But the default option, I felt like, was kind of the unusual option. It was using the same button for both. Why was this just in case you ported it to PSVR? What was the choice there that led you to having the control style be kind of out of the norm of normal VR games, I would say?
You mean, I guess there's two main things, right? There's the grabbing the ball and moving it, which you use the trigger, right? And then you mean moving the puzzle, right? You can just grab space and rotate and move,
you move the world, yeah.
Yeah. So like initially, the default was to use the grips, right, to move the puzzle around, and then use the index finger to grab the ball and move that. But I found like it was an extra layer of explanation I had to give people when I did it and showed them. And I was been massively influenced by Thomas, who made Cubism. I don't know if you played Cubism, but if you haven't, go and play that game. It's a really, really good puzzle game of a similar kind of scope to Squingle, like 3D puzzle game. It's all about the space in front of you. And like he wrote a blog about it and all the design decisions and stuff. And like he had loads of complex controls, mapping different things to different buttons and stuff. But like when it comes to like explaining that to people, it's really hard, and it's quite hard to learn a new mechanism. So you want to keep it as simple as possible. So I just went one button moves everything, one button interacts with everything. And because they use at different times, it doesn't really matter. But then people that want that choice, if they want to use the grip buttons, then they can go in the options and toggle that. So that's the logic. And I found, it's when you give it to people and you start doing user testing, it's just becomes so obvious that, yeah, that was the right decision. Just be really simple with the controls.
Nice.
Yeah, VR definitely needs options, and I felt like the controls did work really, really well. Once you understood that you could like move the puzzle around with the ball around, you could really get creative on how you tried to solve the puzzles. That being said, games that don't really let you do that kinds of stuff, but are still sort of puzzle games like Tetris Effect or like Res Infinite. Have you found yourself being compared to those kinds of games, and what kind of comparisons do you really see between those?
Yeah, it's a great question. I love that question because so like I was actually living in Japan for 4 years, and then during that time, like first started learning Japanese full time for a year there, and then joined this media lab, which just happened to I didn't know at the time, but I joined it because they did really cool stuff with VR and like trippy technologies, haptics, eye tracking, motion tracking, loads of cool stuff that I was interested in. But a guy who was an honorary professor there, who gave lecture courses and stuff, was Tetsuya Mizuguchi, right? Who is the founder of Enhanced Games, and basically he was the brains and creative director of like Res Infinite, Tetris Effect, and other games like Space Channel 5 and Lumens, and some of my favorite games. Massive, and Res, like I got that when I was 14, like played it to death, played it under the influence of every single state of mind you could possibly play it, and I just love that game. It's like you can space out to it. It's like more like an experience than a game almost, although I did get very into the gameplay and competitiveness of it. So I was actually able to work with Tetsuya Mizuguchi and his team. They were creating this full body haptic vibration suit at the time, and then worked on a piece called Crystal Vibes, which is like that synesthesia kind of music visualizer I spoke to you about. You can still play, like came out in 2016 or whatever. We took it to Sundance Film Festival, but you can still play that download it on Steam. It's like $1 or something, but obviously not with the vibration suit. Nice cat.
She was on my lap this whole time.
Does she always come into the podcast?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, massive influence. Res Infinite, like I love that game, and any comparison to Tetris Effect or Res Infinite, or like when Squingle first came out, there was an Italian VRItalia did the first review, and they gave it like 91%. They loved Squingle. He was like, "This is the best thing since Res," and compared it to Thumper as well, and all of these games. And I was like really obviously elated to read that. So I love those comparisons and those games. Yeah.
You bring up 91%. I've got to say, it used to be that with reviews, people always said, oh, the only people who go write reviews are people who have something to complain about. But with your game, I went and I looked, and it's like every review, it's like 5 stars. I love this game, just raving reviews. So of all this time and your engagement in the community, what is it about this game do you think that people have told you or that you've seen that makes people want to support it in such a big way like that?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the thing is it's definitely not everyone's cup of tea. Like some people really just don't get it, and that's fine. But the people that have bought it seems to be the people who get it and see it. And I think people that are seeking those more like esoteric, psychedelic, Buddhist themes, trippy experiences, and there is a very niche, hardcore group of people that really love that, and I mean Squingle's come out of loads of like there's been loads of failed prototypes of things I've tried that have just sounded like good ideas, but it didn't really work out. And then this is the first one where the prototype, people couldn't put it down, people were like playing it and really enjoyed it, and so I thought, well, I'm onto something here. And so that's kind of what made me develop it out into a proper product and a proper business and a proper game. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of considerations. I was working in VR in academia for 2 years, and so I was reading loads of papers about what makes a good VR interaction, user interaction, of how to avoid simulator sickness, how to make the most of the affordances of VR, right? So Squingle really, like the visuals and the gameplay and the interaction, they've thought about this very carefully, right? So, all the action is taking place within like a meter space in front of you, which is where you get the greatest sense of 3D because of the stereoscopic nature of your eyes, right? Anything that's too far away we have different depth cues, but we don't use our stereoscopic triangulation as a depth cue. So the closer something is, the more it sort of gives you that sense of like 3D. You're dealing with something VR, you know. And then there's also, you know, we did a lot of research into haptics with the haptic suit with Mizuguchi and the Res Infinite and everything with the haptic suit. So we investigated how haptics can be used. So wrote a paper about that. And so, you know, Squingle takes very care about its haptic design. The haptics is used as a metaphor for touch. So you feel this, and not only do you feel the vibration when you touch the edge, but the whole puzzle is like squidges out like sort of intestines, you know, so it's like feels very tactile. You get this visual feedback that combines with the haptic feedback and almost gives you a sense of force, because even though there is no force, you know, the haptics is like an AC vibration, but there's a DC component, feel like psychological, because of the visual, the way it stretches, and you get this very careful haptic design that I think people haven't really experienced to the full extent in other games. And then the other aspect of it is that everything's iridescent, right? So iridescence is the property of looking different colors from different angles. So like beetles, you know, or soap bubbles, you get that shimmery, or opal, like you get that shimmery effect that's very beautiful, but it's very beautiful specifically when it's close up to you, because you get, again, your different eyes see different colors. And Squingle, literally everything's iridescent. Like I basically built those shaders, and so it's a unique and unusual experience for people. Imagine a whole world made of iridescent beetles, like everything was iridescent. That's kind of what Squingle is, right? Everything's this trippy iridescent like thing, and it responds to your movement as well. So as you track through the balls, like the colors move with you, and so there's a lot of thoughts gone into that. So I think that's partly why people enjoy it. But obviously, I'm kind of tooting my own pipe there a bit.
I noticed that on the store page, there's a screenshot that kind of looks like it supports hand tracking, and I know that in the options, I couldn't find that being a feature anywhere. I played Trippy Fingers back in the day, and Trippy Fingers was one of the first side quest games I reviewed that had hand tracking, and it was cool to just sort of mess around with the things with your hands. Have you thought of adding hand tracking to Squingle at all?
Yeah, hand tracking is like amazing. You know, it's like one of the most. It's really profound. And you talk about Trippy Fingers. It was a really small demo. It took very little time, but it was just a tech demo. It used like some of the sound visualization like algorithm that I made that converts sound waves into light waves and color, and then combines it with, you know, the fingers so that you can have confetti and dance around. It's quite a lot of fun to just, even though it was very simple, you know, to play around with that. Yeah, with Squingle, I've thought about it, but I think a really important part of it is that haptic feedback that you get when you touch the edge. It's a really critical feedback for the gameplay, to play the game successfully. If you turn the haptics all the way to 0, which you can do if you like in the options, it makes the game harder to play because you can't feel what you're doing. It'd be like trying to, I don't know, cook a dinner without being able to, like with oven mitts on or something. You can't feel what you're doing. So yeah, I decided, you know, because hand tracking, you can't get that haptic feedback, at least not yet. The technology's not there. Then I decided to kind of leave it out. But it's something, you know, maybe it's something that could be used in the future, but I don't have plans to do it because I think the precision of tracking is really important in Squingle, especially as you start doing like speed running. You know, there's a speed run timer in there now, so you can got to be very accurate with the tracking, and the hand tracking just isn't quite accurate enough to really get that precision down. So that's the reasons. Yeah, precision and haptics is those two very important things for Squingle. Yeah,
I think that makes sense. Yeah, with how precise you have to be. Like once the two balls split and you have like a path that you have to move them through. I wish hand tracking was good enough at this point, but I think it's just not quite there yet. We talked about how people compared it to like Res Infinite and Tetris Effect, and I noticed there was some musical elements. You'd hit certain blocks inside the digestive tract and it would add a little musical note, but I kept thinking like it kind of felt like if it had a whole soundtrack like Res or something that really worked with the levels, it would kind of add more to the game. Was there a reason you kind of kept the music as part of the background, or is there plans to bring music back into the game?
Yeah, so I think the music I think is one of the very successful things about the game. This guy called Kai Jones who did it, who I've just met at like a game jam or something, you know, and he was just out of uni, so he basically did it for very little money, which is good because budget of Squingle was pretty small. And, it's kind of layered. So the first 5 levels you do is just like this ambient track, it's just to introduce. And then suddenly it brings in like some drum, and the next 5 levels, and then the next 5 levels, it brings in like, the tune or whatever, and then brings in the bass or so it's kind of layered. So as you progress, the sound layers and gets more complicated. And then when you get into the next sort of set of levels, then it's a whole new track, and it starts again with ambient and sort of develops in kind of tune with the storyline of the game, which is, one of development, creation, cosmic evolution, life, love, transcendence at the end. This ultimate culmination of the potential of being in the universe and everything. So the kind of music is kind of designed to kind of follow that feeling. But yeah, Kai Jones, and I think the sound effects work quite well with the music and how it all sort of times into it. But ultimately, it's not like a music game. And like, I think Res is much more designed so that, everything you do is in time to the music, and it creates the music, so it's a bit more like an instrument almost. So that's not so much the focus of Squingle, but I have thought about maybe bringing in more sound, kind of like sound visualization elements to it, working on the sound a bit more, doing some more work with Kai, because he's developed his skills a lot more as well. But I think maybe it's going to be in the next project. I'm going to do something much more full blown with sound visualization, hand tracking, pass through, more like multi-user experience. I've got a few ideas on maybe to integrate some of those trippy features and interesting things, concepts for the next project.
So that being said, for people who haven't heard of Squingle at all, what do you want to make sure that they know about the game?
I think that it's a great game. I think it's a great game to show people, because it's, the visuals are very trippy. It's pretty intuitive to get the hang of. And yeah.
It's available on tons of platforms, I guess. So you can pretty much guarantee almost every headset can play it.
Yeah, indeed, yeah.
As long as you know how to find AppLab games, that sometimes is the struggle for anything on AppLab, is you have to get through a few layers sometimes to find it. But, well, this is where, unfortunately, my controversial opinion is going to kind of land in here. So I'm someone who typically really enjoys puzzle games and even musical games. But when people have compared it to Res Infinite and Tetris Effect, those were both 2 games that I kind of felt like when I got in them were a little overrated. And I hate to say that when I got in Squingle, it didn't resonate with me. I felt like I didn't really get it. And I was asking myself the whole time, was there something I missed? And maybe I'm just too unenlightened to truly enjoy this type of game. Or maybe it's because I've been in VR for so many years. I feel like this is a great experience. If I was putting someone in VR for the first time who liked trippy stuff, this would probably be the go-to game, because it's very gentle on someone. It lets them learn as they go. It doesn't push VR on them too hard, too early. But for me personally, I just didn't get a lot out of the experience. Is there something that maybe if I go back and I try a different mode or something, maybe I can get more out of it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to start crying right now, but
I'm sorry.
What have you done? Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I think Res when it came out is quite polarizing, right? I think a lot of people loved it. Some people, it didn't necessarily get reviewed that highly. I'm not sure what it got in Edge. I was reading Edge magazine a lot at the time, but I think it also didn't get bought that much at the beginning. I think that, when you read interviews with Mizuguchi at the time, he was quite disappointed in how it didn't seem to be much of a commercial success at the time, and some people didn't really get it. It's become, having said that, I absolutely loved it, and there was definitely a hardcore cult following of people that really got it and understood the point of it. Maybe it's the people that have opened their third eye or something, the people that like get really stoned or something, It definitely goes with that territory, to some extent, I think. Although, yeah. So, it's definitely a style of a game, So if you're into, if you're into shooting, like VR is great for shooting games and great for Beat Saber music games. So if you're into those games, that's great. But I think it's important to have a diverse set of different types of experience.
Well, the haptic part is such a big part of Res Infinite, because I remember they released an accessory for the Dreamcast that let you have a little like extra vibration. And then when they released the game later on for Xbox Live Arcade, you could use secondary controllers to like put them on your lap to get the extra vibration and that whole haptic feedback.
Yeah.
Suddenly it's clicking to me how much that really meant to you making Squingle.
Yeah, I mean, I was super impressed. Like, I was so happy when like I got to play the Res Infinite and the VR version on the PSVR before it came out, because I was in the lab where they're doing it. So I had like a cheeky play on it before it came out, and I was super excited to get that when it came out on Steam. And I still play it like every so often, go through the game. I've been going through the like endless mode or whatever, so you just go through and you unlock new color versions of the game. It's a short game. It's very repetitive, but it's an experience. It's a meditation. It's a way of being. It's a way of chilling out. And I definitely wanted that same experience in Squingle. It's a place that you occupy, that you can go, you can withdraw, and it's slightly intellectual. You have to think a little bit, but it's embodied. Yeah, there's a lot of topology in there. It's like juggling. It's a bit like a flow toy. I'm a big juggler and I really enjoy juggling. And when you juggle, you just get into this zone, and it's creative, it's skillful, and it's something you enjoy. A bit like a musical instrument or something, but much more. It's physical, and you're playing with physics, and you're playing with matter, you're playing with the universe, and you're playing with topology. And Squingle embodies a lot of that kind of feeling. So, if you go into it maybe with that kind of mindset, then you might find, you might revisit it, and if that fails, just take some acid or something and then play it.
I did go in completely sober. I even thought during it, I was like, if I'd had a couple drinks before this, I feel like I might have come out with like this life-changing experience, because it does have a lot of layers like that.
Yeah.
It's got the whole Zen thing going on. With that being said, though, it's definitely like a niche genre. The whole puzzle and the trippy thing. Everyone seemed to have loved it review-wise and everything, but have you had any negative feedback at all on it other than Jay?
Yeah, Reddit's great if you want negative feedback, just post something on Reddit. It's a really great place to...
I think we've all learned that.
It's a really great
Regardless,
place
you ask for the negative feedback.
Yeah, have your soul crushed, or just come on this podcast, in fact. But yeah, like there was one guy. There's a guy. I think he always comes whenever I post something on Reddit, and he's just like, I would never spend money on this mini game or something like that. Or like people say some really cruel stuff. Luckily, other people downvote those comments. I mean, I've just been overwhelmed with the positive feedback. If you look at Squingle's AppLab page and you read the reviews, like everyone's left, a decent sized review. You can tell people really love the game. They people commenting on the graphics, the gameplay, the sound, what they like about it, and it's just like people saying it's their new favorite and it's what they show their friends, and like it's overwhelming. Yeah, like the positive the feedback, and then the media as well has been really, really positive about it as well. Like every review that's been put out is like super, super happy about that. So yeah,
I noticed a lot of the YouTubers that I watch other than our channels have definitely given Squingle some really good reviews and good feedback when it came out. And it's a polished title. Like that's the thing. A lot of the AppLab titles are in alpha or unfinished. Squingle came out and it was a done, finished, polished title that looked great and played great. So I'm glad you at least got the positive.
I made the Steam version, and then I wanted to put it on the Oculus AppLab, right, and Oculus Quest. But it's so much harder. It's so like obviously you've only just got that mobile processor in there. So it was like 3 months of full-time work just to optimize the game. Basically, I had to rewrite all the shaders, like reprocess all of the meshes, the character mesh, like everything had to be optimized. And then it was running at 120 hertz on Quest, so I'm really pleased about that. Because it's like a passion project. It's not just something I've like churned out and trying to put like profit on really quickly. I've gone to town with making quality control, user testing. A lot of people have played, hundreds of people played Squingle before it came out. It had a long beta program, been looking at the statistics on, like getting analytics to see where people fail, to make levels easier or harder, to get the learning curve right. And, a lot of work's gone into the polish of the game, I guess. So, I think it's paid off. But, so many things. And there was a Steam Next Fest where it was first shown, right? It was sort of like did a demo. And there was like a hardcore group of about 5 or 6 people who were, because I put a little leaderboard in there, and they were trying to finish the demo as quickly as they possibly could. But they figured out how to break the game in like loads of different ways. So, if you do it really fast, you can jump through walls, or like, there were other kind of bugs, exploits that they discovered, and so that was really good for getting quality control on the game. So the final version of the game, I closed all those exploits so you couldn't just cheat your way to victory. Yeah.
Gamers always find the exploits. Well, correct me if I'm wrong, there is a demo of the game available too, isn't there? Still?
Yeah, that's right. There is. Yeah. I've been toying with whether to get rid of the demo. Actually, I'm not sure what you guys think about that, because I think that it's quite hard to maintain. It's like maintaining a whole nother game, because you have to, every time you update, you need to keep it. And we changed the artwork a bit, so I need to update the demo as well. And there's also a worry that people play the demo and they get a lot of value out of it. The art style and the things, and then then they don't play the rest of the games, which I think is sad. So I don't know how good as a marketing tool having a demo out there is, but I mean, I like the idea of more people playing.
I think demos can be good and definitely demos can be bad. And I think that for this kind of game, if you have a demo that says, okay, here's level 1, but then here's level 15, and then here's level 60 to sort of show, okay, this is not simple the whole way through, it's better off. But if it's just a lot of the demos are like, here's the first 5-minute tutorial, and it's like, well, this first 5-minute tutorial is not really representative of the actual product. So the demo in that situation is just hurting the game. They're better off looking at a review and seeing the puzzles. And I think you can see a review of this game and tell if you're going to like it from that. But I mean, at the same time, the visuals are so good that even having a simple demo to be like, this is what it looks like, could be enough to be like, yeah, I want to pay for more.
Yeah, I mean, the actual game on the store has, like, as I say, it's got the best average user rating of any software on the Oculus, on the Quest store. But the free game has got hardly any reviews, and it's got quite a bad, it's got like pretty middling rating. It's like 3.8 or something. I don't know what it is at the moment, but yeah, I mean, so it's kind of bizarre that you give something free to someone and everyone like gives it a load of rubbish, and but then people that pay for stuff, maybe they're a bit more, they're bought into it, so they don't want to. They've got a vested interest in thinking that what they've paid for is worthwhile. Or something, I don't know, but that's another reason to take it off, is if it's got really bad reviews and it doesn't make the whole brand look good. So just maybe keep the main game on there.
It's an interesting concept, because I think, and we might go down a whole other path here, so I'll keep this brief, but what may be happening is everyone who's interested tries the demo, and those who realize they want it buy the game and then give the game a great review. But the demo may weed out the people who it's just not their kind of game. And so you kind of avoid getting those negative reviews on the actual game, because of someone who spent $20 or I think it's $15, someone who spent that and didn't like it might give it a bad review. But if they had the demo to try first, it kept them from ever buying the game if it wasn't their type of game. So
that's a great point. That's a really good point. I never even thought about that.
Yeah, I was thinking that too, actually. I was like,
I'll keep the demo.
Yeah. Well, it's obvious this is a passion project hearing from you. And I want to say thank you so much for coming on. Of course, we're going to have links in the description, the show notes, to the demo, to the actual game. So if you're out there, there's no risk if you want to try the demo and see if this is for you, because obviously by the rating, it's for a lot of people. A lot of people love this game. And even though I may be one of the minority who it didn't really click with me, there's probably tons of you out there who are going to love it and really get a special experience out of it, especially maybe if you go in after a drink or two or something, really get a life-changing moment out of this game. But is there anything else you were hoping to mention about the game that we didn't cover here before we sign off, Ben?
Yeah, I guess there is some big change coming soon. So to Squingle. So we've already covered a couple of things which may allude or may not allude to some of the things coming. But yeah, we're going to be at EGX, which is a big games conference in a massive conference center in London in September, and we're going to be showcasing some new stuff there. So yeah, we're still looking for if anyone's interested in covering the super cool exclusive new feature and interested in covering it, and that'll be great. But yeah, keep your eyes open. There's going to be a big change, and when the new Quest Pro comes out, I'm definitely going to start doing some stuff with that. So keep watch this space. Squingle is not finished in its development yet; it's still growing. So yeah, keep an eye.
Well, that's all sounds really, really amazing. And, I had fun playing Squingle. And I also want to say, people should check out SideQuest for your developer page on SideQuest and check out some of the other things. And you got Trippy Fingers, and I think you have the music visualizer or something on there too. But
Yeah,
just huge thanks for stopping by.
couple
It
of
was really
small
cool to
things,
have you
yeah.
on here. And
There's also on my
Definitely.
website, there's a Juggle Planet Juggle. It's like a juggling game. It's not very
There you
good,
go.
but it's free. You can try it. It was just a prototype. I never really got past it. It does have a campaign mode, so you juggle more and more balls, and you have to on the moon and stuff. And try that. But yeah, it's not that good. Don't get your hopes up too much.
Well, when it's free, people shouldn't complain, but apparently they do. Ben,
Right. People
wanna
love
say
complaining,
thank you.
especially when it's free.
Especially when it's free. Well, then they didn't have to pay anything to leave a complaint. Thank you so much. This has been an absolute pleasure to have you on and a lot of fun. If you're out there right now and you're listening to this podcast, remember, you can come join our Discord, and you can, after you've tried this, you can tell us what you think about it, because I'd love to hear some more feedback from the community out there. And if you're here on YouTube, you can see us face to face, see what my cat was doing the whole podcast. And if you want to take us anywhere on the go, though, we're on every audio platform for you. So I just want to say again, thank you so much, Ben, for being here.
No, it's my pleasure. It's been fun talking to you guys. And it's great to see you again,
It's been
Lipnox.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, hey, if you're out there and you're thinking about VR, it's finally time to just dive on in.